I'm Chuck Mason, and welcome back to the channel. Why are we doing a 24 election recap in February? Stick around for the analysis to find out. If you're concerned about America, there's a message you need to hear. This is from my article on American Thinker, Trump's Victory, a Historic Win with an Achilles Heel. If you're reveling in the glow of Trump's historic election, enjoy the moment. He won it all. The popular vote, 312 in the Electoral College, and every swing state as Republicans took control of the House and the Senate. It was a political butt-kicking that was epic in every way. And pundits are still crowing that it's the end of woke, a massive turning point in the nation, and the beginning of the Trump Vance era of American politics. But not so fast. Conservatives need to temper this with a massive reality check. Donald Trump came within 240,000 votes of losing the White House to Kamala Harris. Two things can be true at the same time. Trump's win was historic, but it also has an Achilles heel. Margins of victory that are so slim that they are tenuous at best. The political butt-kicking America handed Harris was tighter than any conservative wants to admit. The left was beaten, not defeated. And Trump's mandate will evaporate in a heartbeat if conservatives hand everything back to the left by giving up on the grassroots effort that secured this exceptionally narrow victory. It's all here in the 2024 election stats, if you want to look. And look you must. So let's start here. Trump won the popular vote, but his margin was 1.6% or 2.5 million votes, the smallest since Reagan. And popular margins can easily be overcome every 4 years, especially one this small. It's a natural part of the election cycle as fickle American voters shift between parties. Bush the Elder won the popular vote by 7.8% in 1988, which evaporated in his loss to Bill Clinton in 1992. People overlook that 48.5% of Americans voted to keep Harris and her social Marxist woke policy in place. Half of America didn't seem to mind that the border was wide open, Venezuelan gangs controlled apartment buildings, food was unaffordable, and children were abused with puberty blockers and permanently scarred to advance the trans agenda as boys pummeled girls in women's sports. The majority of the country did not shift to the right. The left still has a solid competitive base. If you disagree, ask the 48.5% of Americans who thought 4 more years of the Biden administration on steroids was good for the country. More stats. Trump won all swing states, but Democrats had a path to the White House. Nearly every swing state's margin of victory was within the margin of error, which means they were winnable if the left didn't choose a dumpster fire candidate who ran a dumpster fire campaign. Consider this. Trump won Pennsylvania by 1.7%, Michigan by 1.4%, and Wisconsin by 0.9%. Harris only needed these vote totals, 130,000 in PA, 80,000 in Michigan, and 30,000 in Wisconsin to win. Choosing Josh Shapiro as VP closes the gap in PA and helps her find an additional 110,000 voters in Michigan and Wisconsin to secure 44 more Electoral College votes. Then it's Harris 270, Trump 268. Imagine an America where Donald Trump wins the popular vote, the House and the Senate, but loses the White House by 240,000 votes in 3 battleground states. Welcome to America's second Civil War. I get it, she didn't win. And the pundits will tell you it was a spectacular butt-kicking, and it was. But he is far more vulnerable than they would let you believe. They'll never tell you the left had an easy path to secure the White House if they chose a competitive candidate. The House of Representatives tells a similar story. It took more than 10 days after the election to decide that Republicans would secure a single-digit majority in the House, and many races still haven't been called. And don't blame the delay on mail-in balloting slowing the process. It does. The races are too close to call because they're that tight. Margins that narrow can be easily flipped during the midterms, which are notorious for giving the House majority to the party outside the Oval Office. Pundits paint 2024 as a historic win that saved America, and in many ways it has. But they ignore how close this election was, and that's where the problem lies. This historic win has an Achilles heel no one wants to talk about. But guess who is talking? The left. They know the stats, and they have no intention of backing down. They lost a significant battle, but they didn't surrender their ideological arms in America's culture war. I didn't see any flags of surrender or come to Jesus moments where leftists donned sackcloth and ashes, begging forgiveness, repenting for the generations of cultural rot they poured out on America, and neither did you. That's because they have no intention of giving up the fight. They're going to do exactly what the Republicans did after 2020. They'll take the loss, reevaluate, rebrand, remessage, and create a strategy to reclaim the Latinos, black men, women, and working-class Americans who voted for Trump and secured his victory. The left will work hard to keep the 48.5% who voted for Harris intact, keeping it competitive. They'll work harder to overcome the slim margins in the swing states and House races, just as Republicans did in 2024. This is the Achilles heel of Trump's historic win. The margins are too close to take for granted. Conservatives will hand it back to the Democrats in 2026 and 2028 if they abandon the grassroots movement that secured this election. Trump's effort was historic, but he couldn't have won without a grassroots movement that exploded new Republican registrations, brought the Amish out in force, won the mail-in voting game, motivated the low-propensity crowd, told the church to get into the game, and appealed to their friends and family that America's future was on the line. Are conservatives willing to make this fight a part of their DNA moving forward? This remains to be seen. They haven't had the heart for it in the past, which means the resurgence of America under Trump's leadership will be for naught if conservatives ignore the election's Achilles heel and abandon the grassroots movement that secured the victory that delivered us from evil. This is the take-home message of this article on why we're talking about an election in 2024 in February of 2025. In case you haven't noticed, the entire country didn't move to the right. The left wasn't defeated because have you heard any flags of surrender or repent for the decades of cultural rot that they've poured out on the nation since the election? The fact is, you haven't. We as conservatives want to believe this message because we want this to be true. We want something like a simple election to have solved all the problems in the country so that we can go back to living life as usual, which means enjoying what we want to do without having to get involved in the hard work of the grassroots movement that helped secure this election. The reality is we can't rely on federal majorities any longer to secure the nation. The work Trump has done since the election has been done with a pen. It's all been done outside of the legislative process, which means when the Dems get back in power, they're going to move the country in their direction with the stroke of a pen, like Trump has moved it to the right. If Ronald Reagan couldn't have secured a conservative nation with his Reagan Camelot, and we can see the slide that has happened since his administration, the country is not going to stay to the right after Trump. The fight has only just begun, and it's going to involve us. Before you hit me up in the comments about stolen elections and creating votes that create these narrow margins, spare me. Until we actually have evidence to prove how many votes were counted and what that true count was, we have to deal with the reality that we're dealt, which means we have to look inward to ourselves and ask us whether we as individuals want to get involved in the hard work of preserving a nation and securing the values that we want to see be predominant within our country. If you're concerned about the future, find a mirror. It's time to get up, get involved, and be part of the process. What we did in 2024 that secured this election has to become a part of our DNA and our everyday lives moving forward. Thank you for being a part of the podcast. As always, please like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy the scenery that came from Colorado's Flat Tops Wilderness. And thank you.